A lot happened over the weekend, and the conflict in the Middle East is dominating global headlines. And joining us this morning to break everything down, journalist, the one and only Roland Martin, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Roland, for being here. Roland is the host of the Roland Martin Unfiltered. Roland, welcome back, man.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Man, so a lot of people are concerned about what's going on in Iran, and how has Trump been able to continue to initiate these major military actions and even go into war without zero input from Congress? And according to D.L. Hughley's Instagram, it's showing that over 500 troops was killed, according to D.L. Hughley's Instagram.
Well, not 500 United States troops. You've had 3 U.S. servicemen that have been killed. But that we still, of course, waiting on various assessments. So this is crazy and complex. Okay, so Donald Trump pulled the United States out. We had negotiated with President Obama a governance of Iran's nuclear program. Donald Trump said that was an awful deal. He removed us from that. So the United States and other Gulf states were negotiating a new agreement overseeing Iran's nuclear program. Well, while that negotiation was taking place, Donald Trump felt the Iranians were not moving fast enough, so he decided to break up negotiations and join with Israel in attacking Iran. Now, Israel has never wanted Iran to have a nuclear program. Israel has a nuclear bomb, and so they have warned for 30 years that Iran is close to getting one. So we joined Israel in attacking them. So Trump literally tells the New York Times that, well, we could have something similar in Iran with what we just saw in Venezuela, where we removed the Venezuelan president, and we are now telling the Venezuelan leadership how they should run their country. So he thinks we can do the same thing in Iran. Well, that ain't going to happen in Iran because Iran is led by hardline Islamists. Okay? Now, see, this is where it gets crazy. You remember the 1979 Iranian hostage crisis?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right.
Well, again, that's when the hardliners took over. So for most Americans, our mindset goes, well, this all started when the Iranians, hardliners, took over the country, took over our embassy for 444 days, held them hostage, and we've been fighting with them ever since. We call them a terrorist state and how they cause problems all around. But you got to go back to 1953, is when the United States overthrew, with the help of the United States, the CIA, in England, overthrew a democratically elected government, Prime Minister Mossadegh in 1953, because he wanted to nationalize their oil because they felt that then called Anglo-Iranian oil, now known as BP, was making too much money off their oil. Well, the U.S. said, we'll help y'all overthrow them. We put into place the Shah. He ran a repressive regime, but we controlled the Shah. So this battle with Iran, and the Iranians used to love America. But until we overthrew their government in 1953, that's when everything changed. And so a lot of Americans don't want, a great book on this is Stephen Kinzer, Kinzer. Book is called Overthrow. It's a phenomenal book that details this as well. So this is what is really going on here. So we always say, well, we're doing things in American interest. But we have to understand, American interest ain't always that country's interest. Now, you got Iranians who don't like the hardliners. The Iranians allegedly killed some 30,000 protesters in the last several months who were taken to the streets. So you have people in Iran who don't like the hardliners, but they struck those protesters down. So there are people in Iran who don't like the mullahs running their country, but they are the ones who in power. We always say, what are our interests? And American interests always come back to oil. In this case, it's also protecting Israel. Now, here's what's crazy. What Iran is doing, Iran is like, okay, we're firing on all these other countries where there are U.S. bases. So they're firing on Dubai. They're firing on that, and they're now shutting down the airports. Well, here's the problem. Those airports are where all the traffic go through all the Middle East and other parts of the world. The Straits of Hormuz is where 20% of the nation's oil comes through. Who controls that? Iran. So we could see gas prices spike where oil goes up to $100 a gallon because of this war. And so Trump thinks this is so simple as, well, it could be like we did in Venezuela. His advisors are telling him, hey, man, this ain't the same. It's a lot more complex. So for the people who say we should have done this long ago, this is the problem when you say use the military to take someone out. There are cascading consequences that go beyond just bombing a country, and that's where we are. I know it sounds complicated because it is.
So let me ask you this. Could China get involved because China gets a lot of their oil from Iran?
Well, when you say China get involved, China does not necessarily. China doesn't use its military the way we use our military. We actually bomb countries. Donald Trump has struck more countries than any president in history since he's been president. But
he's the
China,
peace president. How is that possible?
And there you go. And in fact, there's tons of video where going back where he said, "Oh, Obama was going to strike Iran. Kamala Harris is going to strike Iran." Well, he has, and that's why you have conservatives who have been highly critical of him by saying, "Wait a minute, you promised us no new wars." Well, we know that was a lie. So, do I think China will get involved militarily? No, but China can influence geopolitical politics in a different way. And again, this is the thing that people have to understand. Donald Trump and a lot of conservatives think it's just so simple as we can bomb a country, take it over. Well, how did that work in Iraq? How did that work in Afghanistan?
Yep.
And that's the problem. It's not that simple, which is why diplomacy matters. And people may say, well, they're a terrorist state, and they're against Israel, and we stay with Israel. It's that simple. But it's not that simple because there's so many other countries that are impacted in that region, and we're seeing it right now. Iran is firing missiles on Kuwait, on Dubai, on a lot of countries in that area that also are where they have United States bases. And so this thing has opened up a massive Pandora's box. And Trump says we might have this fight for the next 4 to 5 weeks. Well, we'll see if that can be sustained, but the fallout is going to be enormous as a result of the action taken this weekend.
Hold that thought, y'all. More Roland Martin coming up next. Rickey Smiley Morning Show. Now, Roland, what could this mean long term?
Well, that's always the problem when you talk about long term. Obviously, you're going to have impact on oil prices. That's long term. You're going to have a skittish Gulf states as to whether who they align with. You've got Saudi Arabia, which is a huge American partner, offering their military to other countries to assist them. And then, of course, according to Oman, that Iran had agreed to all of the major concessions of the United States in the negotiation, and the United States and Israel still bombed them. So the question is, will other countries say, well, man, why should we participate in negotiations if this is going to be the action of the United States? Listen, you had 150 girls, a school that was bombed in Iran, and those girls were killed. And a lot of Americans only care about American deaths, but you look at the hundreds of thousands who were killed in Iraq. So, listen, you can't predict what it is going to be. This is why military force is always the last option. Republicans and conservatives in this country blame Obama, blame Biden, blame Clinton. We should have done this a long time ago. Well, that's easier said than done because as the late Colin Powell, told President George W. Bush, he's like, listen, when you break it, you own it. And look what happened. We still are more than 20 years later, we're dealing with the fallout of what took place in Iraq. Again, the simple analysis was we take over Iraq, we go in, we hold as victors, everything is great. Well, guess what? You now have to have a functioning government. And so when you remove a dictator, what do you replace it with? Right. You might replace it with mayhem. The same thing that happened in Iran. That's the problem. That's why
Roland,
diplomacy is so critically important. Yes.
I have a question. So, the lack of oversight from Congress, it irks my entire soul. The fact that this man is just not held to any kind of oversight, any kind of pushback, any kind of Congress saying pump the brakes. What are we doing here? Why is the media not? Why are they so reluctant to report on this?
Well, you got to remember, Republicans control Congress. Republicans control the House. They control the Senate. So therefore, they are beholden, and Trump controls the Republican Party. He controls MAGA. And so you have disagreeing people in Congress who say, well, Congress can authorize a war, but not actually declare war. And so you've had other presidents, Democratic presidents, as well say that they have the power to take action that's not necessarily a war. Now, the big eight in Congress, that's the top four leaders in the House and the Senate, were warned of the actions taking place. But this is what happens when you also have Republicans who control all three parts of the government.
So let me ask you something. The Pentagon right now is holding a news conference as we speak, and Hegseth is promising that this is no Iraq and we won't go on forever. But it seems like, Roland, that nothing is done with this president and this administration without timing. And, you know, we've got primaries, early voting going on across the country. Is this timing a coincidence? Will it affect voting?
I think it will affect voting. First, in this is the understand Trump. There was a meeting in the White House where Zelensky was there, and Trump throws out, "Oh yeah, hey, you know, during a war, you can't have elections." I mean, so he says these crazy things, and the problem is the media often goes, "Well, that's a Trump being Trump." No. He believes this stuff, and so it is going to have an impact because this is now going to be part of the equation. The questions that are being asked of the candidates. In terms of where they stand. And again, his poll numbers are awful. And we've seen this before. And so a lot of people say, hey, the history of Republicans, you know, going to war when their poll numbers are low to help them out. You got the movie Wag the Dog that talks about that as well. And that's also part of this because what often happens when America goes to war, it's, hey, no opposition, be quiet, we must unify. And I remember when I first in Iraq, remember Phil Donahue was on MSNBC. They canceled his show because he had an opposition to war, and it's sort of like, get in line, we got to stand behind America. Well, that ain't happening. I'm telling you right now. You're going to have a lot more voices speaking against this here. And so it's absolutely going to have an impact. Now, Republicans think it's going to help them out, but it could go the other direction where it goes against them if this thing goes beyond 4 to 5 weeks. And if the fallout from this begins to be more American soldiers die, and if we see gas prices go higher, if we see the fallout in other countries as well, again, this thing right now is just Israel, United States attacking Iran, but you see Iran firing missiles at 5, 6 other countries. This thing could spread to impact 10, 15, 20, 30 other countries. That's why this is so unpredictable.
Man, that's some good information. Hey, Roland, let everybody know if they want more information, how can they reach you?
Look, we'll be breaking this thing down on the show tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern. I'll be live from New York at Susan Taylor's National Cares Mentoring Gala. Follow us on the social, and we're going to have black experts, black national policy experts, generals, and so that's the other piece. We're going to be emphasizing our people breaking this thing down to explain the geopolitical crisis that we now are in, folks, as a result of Donald Trump's action joining Israel and attacking Iran. So hit us on all socials at Roland S. Martin and, of course, Black Star Network. Subscribe to our YouTube channel because ain't nobody talking about it from the black perspective like us.
There it is, y'all. Roland Martin, y'all. More Rickey Smiley Morning Show coming up.